Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Who is in charge here while Shruti is gone? Nobody? Who is in charge? You have another Bhagavatam? You mean there's nobody in charge? Ah, wow. That's why I could see things were a little slow this morning, huh? Okay, so this morning we're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, chapter 23, and we'll be covering verses 23 to 42. Yeah, we're going to read verse number 23. Swarga pavargayodvaram Prapya lokam imam puman Dravineko nusajjeta Martyurnarthasya dhamani Swarga pavargayodvaram Prapya lokam imam puman Dwarine konu sajjeta Martyurnarthasya dhamani. Please chant.
Svargapavargayorvaram Prapya lokam imam puman Dravineko anusajjeta Martyonarthasya dhamani.
Anyone else?
Pavargayodvaram Prapya lokam imam puman
Dravineko nusajjeta Martyonarthasya dhamani. Word to word, we can do it all together. Swarga of heaven, Apavargayo and liberation, Dwaram the gateway, Prapya achieving, Lokam the human life, Imam this, a person, Dharine to property, who Anusajjeta will become attached, Martya prone to death, Anarthasya of worthlessness, Dhamani in the realm. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. What mortal man, having achieved this human life, which is the very gateway to both heaven and liberation, would willingly become attached to that abode of worthlessness, material property? That which one intends to use for one's personal sense gratification is called material property, whereas paraphernalia to be used in the Lord's loving service is understood to be spiritual. One should give up all one's material property by utilizing it completely in the devotional service of the Lord. A person who owns a luxurious mansion should install the deity of the Lord and hold regular programs to propagate Krishna consciousness. Similarly, wealth should be used to build temples of the Lord and publish literature scientifically explaining the personality of Godhead. One who blindly renounces material property without utilizing it in the service of the Lord does not understand that everything belongs to the personality of Godhead. Such blind renunciation is based on material idea that this property could belong to me, but I don't want it. Everything, in fact, belongs to God. Knowing this, one neither tries to enjoy nor to reject the things of this world, but peacefully engages them in the service of the Lord.
Just one note before we read the texts. There are about 20 texts we were assigned today. We're going to read, and I want you to take particular care to hear these things carefully, because we're going to be doing a reflection exercise based on these 20 so verses after we're finished reading them.
So I thought maybe the students can take turn to read a verse at a time. We have enough mics there to kind of...
He read this: one moral man, having achieved this human life, which is the very gateway to both heaven and liberation, will willingly become attached to that abode of worthlessness, material property.
One who fails to distribute his wealth to the proper shareholders, the demigods, sages, forefathers, and ordinary living beings, as well as his immediate relatives, in-laws, and own self, is maintaining his wealth simply like a yaksha and will fall down.
Discriminating persons are able to utilize their money, youth, and strength to achieve perfection. But I have foolishly squandered these in the useless endeavor for further wealth. Now that I am an old man, what can I achieve?
Why must an intelligent man suffer by his constant vain efforts to get wealth? Indeed, this whole world is most bewildered by someone's illusory potency.
For one in the grips of the death, what is the use of wealth or those who offer it? Sense of gratification or those who offer it, or for that matter, any type of putative activity which simply causes one to again take birth in the material world.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Hari, who contains within himself and all demigods, must be satisfied with me. Indeed, he has brought me to this suffering condition and forced me to experience detachment, which is the boat to carry me over this ocean of material life.
If there is any time remaining in my life, I will perform austerities and force my body to subsist on the bare necessities. Without further confusion, I shall pursue that which constitutes my entire self-interest in life, and I shall remain satisfied within the self.
Thus may the presiding demigods of these three worlds kindly show their mercy upon me. Indeed, Maharaj Katvanga was able to achieve the spiritual world in a single moment.
Lord Sri Krishna continued, his mind thus determined, that most excellent Avanti Brahmana was able to untie the knots of desire within his heart. He then assumed the role of a peaceful and silent sannyasi mendicant.
He wandered about the earth, keeping his intelligence, senses, and life there under control. To beg charity, he traveled alone to various cities and villages. He did not advertise his spiritual position and thus was not recognized by others.
O kind Uddhava, seeing him as an old dirty beggar, rowdy persons would dishonor him with many insults.
Some of these persons would take away his sannyas rod, and some the water pot which he was using as a begging bowl. Some took his deerskin seat, some his chanting beads, and some would steal his torn, ragged clothing. Displaying these things before him, they would pretend to offer them back, but they would hide them again.
When he was sitting on the bank of a river about to partake of the food that he had collected by his begging, such sinful rascals would come and pass urine on it, and they would dare to spit on his head.
Although he had taken a vow of silence, they would try to make him speak, and if he did not speak, they would beat him with sticks. Others would chastise him, saying, "This man is just a thief," and others would bind him up with ropes, shouting, "Tie him up, tie him up."
They would criticize and insult him, saying, "This man is just a hypocrite and a cheat. He makes it a business of religion simply because he has lost all his wealth and his family threw him out."
Some would ridicule him by saying, "Just see this greatly powerful sage. He is as steadfast as the Himalayan mountains. By practice of silence, he strives for his goal with great determination, just like a hero." Other persons would pass foul air upon him, and sometimes others would bind this twice-born Brahmana in chains and keep him captive like a pet animal.
The Brahmana understood that all his sufferings from other living beings, from the higher forces of nature, and from his own body was unavoidable, being allotted to him by providence.
Even while being insulted by these low-class men who were trying to affect his downfall, he remained steady in his spiritual duties. Fixing his resolution in the mode of goodness, he began to chant the following song. The Brahmana said, "These people are not the cause of my happiness and distress. Neither are the demigods, my own body, the planets, my past work, or time. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life."
Thank you all for reading. So as I mentioned before, this morning we want to do a little reflective exercise based on what spiritual perfection looks like, or how you think of spiritual perfection. When we come to Krishna consciousness, we have certain view about what our goal is. What is the goal of Krishna consciousness? What's the faultless way of getting there? So that's also part of spiritual perfection, as is the ultimate goal of being fully in love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But from our perspective today, sitting in here in Gainesville, Florida, the Hare Krishna Temple, I'd like to ask you all to reflect on and share with everyone else here what spiritual perfection looks like to you. We see here the Avanti Brahmana, what his experience is. So I wonder if he thought what his experience would be when he began his trek back to Godhead. Maybe it can come out in our discussion, but again, the point for discussion on the floor that I'd like to hear from all of you is, what does spiritual perfection look like to you? Do it.
In the context of what we just read, or just in general?
Just in general.
In general, well, it will be like being in this world and acting in this world, but with understanding that we are not of it. That's one way of looking that I look at the spiritual perfection.
Okay, now how do you achieve that?
Well, first of all, by knowledge, by understanding of what we are part of. If we're in this world and we're acting in it, with understanding that we're not of it, that will require some kind of understanding of what we are part of in a higher sense, and then aligning ourselves with that through proper mindset and consciousness.
Okay. Anybody else?
Spiritual perfection is a really, you yourself, if you're spiritually perfect, you become a really powerful force. Before you reach spiritual perfection, the energy of this world can kind of push back against you, and you're kind of going with the ebb and flow. But once you reach actual perfection, you're like an immovable object, and an unstoppable force. And no matter what happens, you are just completely situated right within that whirl of the lotus, right within, real reality, spiritual reality. And that's exemplified by this Brahmana. He's so self-satisfied that even if the most ridiculous things happen, people are really taunting him in all kinds of demoniac ways, but he just couldn't care less. He cannot be moved from his position of purely just relishing the spiritual reality.
There was a time in the history of ISKCON where devotees went to the airports and distributed books there. And they experienced some of the same kind of treatment that we read in these verses today. They would be threatened, beat, arrested, harassed by those that wanted to keep them from their spiritual duties. So being able to be fixed like the Brahman is, and as you mentioned, it's an important quality of what spiritual perfection looks like. Anybody else?
I think it looks like action through compassion for other spirit souls. I think it's not seen, but it's felt with your heart. You can't really, because somebody can fake actions too. They can go through a process of seeming to be kind or seeming to be renounced. I think it's felt. When you're tested like this Brahmana was, I think it's easy to stand up against opposition, but I think it's a lot harder when no one's testing you and there's no stimulus, where you're just left with your faith and yourself and God, where if somebody opposes me, it's like, oh, now I have something to fight against. I have opposition, but there's nothing. It's just you. And I think that's difficult as well.
Very nice.
When the bona fide spiritual master and the devotees are pleased. When the bona fide spiritual master and the devotees are pleased with you.
Yeah. How do your comments, how would they change based on when you first came in contact with Krishna consciousness and now that you've been practicing for some time? In other words, if we were looking to join Hare Krishnas, are you looking for a particular kind of spiritual perfection? And has that changed now that you've been involved for some time?
You're asking, have you evolved more, or your conception of spiritual perfection has changed? Conception of spiritual perfection changed. Yes, need time for Vitalis.
Growing up, when I used to read like Prabhupada Lilamrita, like as a kid, and read about all the like young sannyasi disciples that he had, I thought that spiritual perfection in my life would be like to become like one of those like people, like being a renunciate at a very young age and just maintaining it. I thought that would be perfection. But now, if you'd ask me now that understanding has become that just like being able to like maintain one's devotional practice, like chanting very attentively and performing devotional service without any ulterior motive, that seems like spiritual perfection for me. Like, it's being honest with Krishna about why we're performing devotional service and being situated in that devotional service for the lifetime seems like it would be a good amount of perfection. That's how it has changed.
Thank you.
Somebody said. After Shama, I'd like to hear some of the ladies here. Small in number today, but we need to hear from you.
When you understand that what insignificance is, and that desires are mostly futile and meaningless, and unless you understand that you are part and parcel of Krishna, and that he controls everything, and the only way your life can have any purpose is when you understand that you can't understand. So you take to the process to deepen your understanding and acceptance of the truth. So you can better answer the questions and understand what you're actually supposed to do with your life and not waste it and wait for another epoch or something till you get the chance again.
Very well thought out and expressed.
Any of the ladies? Asta? Call on you. What did you think was spiritual perfection and how it has changed over the time period that you think?
I feel like once I kind of started thinking about such things, it probably was chanting for me, like being able to chant and being able to chant attentively, and I think it has remained the same for me.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here? Thank you.
I guess when I started practicing, my idea of spiritual perfection was maybe to become completely renounced, sannyasi, or just to be in that phase of life. But going through my practice, for me, I think spiritual perfection is just spontaneous devotion to Krishna. I feel you don't have to renounce life and all the material possessions in order to serve Krishna. You just use everything for Krishna. So that's how my conception has changed.
Thank you. Actually, same resonates in what Nitai was also saying. When I came to Krishna consciousness, I had the conception that I'm going to be like Mirabai. Those of you know who is Mirabai, she was renounced. So that was my conception. Yeah, that I'm just going to renounce everything and do seva, but that didn't last too long. But
what's your idea now?
My idea again is the same. My idea is I want to fall in love with Krishna. That's when I think about it. I think about spiritual perfection. I guess that's the goal, and how I would achieve it is another explanation. But yeah, my spiritual perfection is just I want to know this person, Krishna. And it's not how I do it, it's not by renunciation, it's by anything, whatever is there to utilize it, or hear more about Krishna and serve Krishna. So I think that's spiritual perfection for me now. What about yourself?
Well, I'm asking the questions.
But we would like to, I'm asking this question now. I have the mic, so I'm asking you the question.
I can get to that, but there's something I wanted to contribute before, because this Brahmin, to think about his life and how the physical circumstances of his life changed. was a wealthy businessman, had family, opulence, everything that many people chase after in this world was his. But somehow or another he got some detachment, renunciation in his mind, and the circumstances of his life changed significantly. His experiences with people, his family life, everything physically changed. Do you think he was prepared for that? One time, again back in the days when devotees were doing a lot of book distribution, there was a Sankirtan party called the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party. And it was made up of brahmacharis and sannyasis. And it was a rage. Everyone wanted to join. All the brahmacharis wanted to leave the temples where they were at and join. And gradually sannyasis started coming and joining that Sankirtan party. And everyone was really fired up. Most of the devotees in those days were young people. They were fired up to distribute books. And Srila Prabhupada was coming. He was coming to Atlanta. So there was going to be a chance for all these brahmacharis to meet with their spiritual master in Atlanta. And so they came together, and there were a lot of expectations, as you might think. What would Prabhupada say? How would he encourage them? And the mood of the sannyasis and the brahmacharis was renunciation. I'm going to do this my whole life. This is what I found. This is the goal. And so they met with Prabhupada. And they were asking him different questions. But the main message that came out of that meeting with Srila Prabhupada was that most of you will get married. And they were kind of shocked. Here they are, gave up everything, distributing Prabhupada's books 24 hours a day. Marriage life seemed like a distraction. But that was Prabhupada's words to them, that most of you will get married. And I think it brought a sense of reality to them. And many of them did get married, most of them. And they're still executing Krishna consciousness, but the circumstances have changed. So what do you envision about your own development of spiritual life? How circumstances may change for you, and how welcoming are you to those changes? Anybody want to offer some reflections?
Gopal?
I don't really think in most cases that what ashram you end up in you should worry about so much, because it just, whichever one's most natural, you'll just end up in. I don't think so. I want to be a lifelong brahmachari, or I'm going to get married, or should I get married, or should I be a brahmachari? It's just that was my experience. It wasn't totally my choice. I've never been married, but it wasn't totally my choice. But it's the best situation for me. I never really worried about it one way or another.
So you were open, Gopal Prabhu, to, in other words, the question, how much are you welcoming? So basically, you were welcome to anything. You didn't think about it, you didn't worry about it.
I assumed that. I assumed I'd grow up and get married just like everybody else. But you know, that one devotee in particular, I was thinking he was so worried about, you know, should I live in this ashram and should I live in this, you know, in this Krishna temple where there's a lot of women, you know, and try to get married, or should I try to live with a bunch of brahmacharis? And for him, it was like a big, you know, whole mental thing, you know, and it's just whichever one's natural.
So the goal doesn't change, Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's just whichever most natural for you.
You were asking about my own experience.
Oh, you like to answer?
Well, in terms of one's goal, our goal here, I think, is everyone's goal is to be Krishna conscious. As Gopal was saying, we may take different paths for getting there, but we can't let those paths distract us from reaching the goal. And so for myself, I was also a brahmachari. And at some point I felt that for getting to the goal between here and there, I need some help to be able to make it the whole way, to not be taken away by those people who urinate on your sacrifice, or treat you badly or unkindly in different ways. So whatever helps bridge the gap, get you through, gives you the support to get through. That's the advantage that we have, given that we may not be as advanced as the Avanti Brahmana. He could accept all the changes that came in his life, from being honored to being dishonored, and go on strongly in Krishna consciousness. Maybe we're not like that, so therefore we take shelter of the benefit, the opportunities that are given. Grahastha ashram being one of them. Whatever gets you onto the goal. Has anyone ever thought what their spiritual goal is? When you were giving your comments before, they were like almost too philosophical. What's your goal? Where do you see yourself in the spiritual world? Have you ever thought about that? You can't get someplace if you don't think about it. Not that we should be fixated on becoming a gopi or something, but we do have to think about what our place is, what we're aspiring for in the spiritual world. Advaita.
In my earlier philosophical comment, I failed to mention, or I forgot to mention, or I didn't for whatever reason, that all of that would be of any value if my goal wasn't, pure love of God or just pure love, and to be positioned myself in an unconditional way as a service of Guru and Gauranga, wherever they see that fit, with the spiritual world or wherever. So that pure unconditional love would be that goal for me.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, reflections? Yes.
I was just thinking that both honor and dishonor are bad, but sometimes honor can be a little more tricky because we are not always so attentive to realize how detrimental it can be to our spiritual lives. I think it's the same case that you were speaking about when all the brahmacharis descended upon Atlanta. I think it's the same exact time. Then they were also asking Prabhupada. One of them asked, what's the best service we can do for Krishna? Obviously expecting Prabhupada to say, book distribution. But Prabhupada just said that just try and develop some actual love for Krishna, and that's the best service you can do. So Prabhupada gave a very all-encompassing and accommodating answer, just illustrating that there are many different devotees and they all have their different inclinations. So I was also speaking to Nanda yesterday, and she was speaking about ISKCON a few decades back, and the Sankirtan devotees really walked around with a chip on their shoulder, as if they're royalty and the rest are just peasants beneath them. So yeah, we really have to be careful about trying to receive honor and actually subtly hankering for that and relishing that. It's just as bad as someone urinating on you, really. And it's something we have to try and tolerate and move away from, is the honor.
Thank you, because that is a wonderful reflection, as well as it leads us into what I wanted to have Madhumati offer to us. Last time she sang a bhajan that carried the same message as the talk in class. And today she has another bhajan which talks about radical humility. It's bhajan by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And it really helps us keep the right attitude for moving through the phases of our spiritual development.
So I'll read the English first, so then when we're singing it, we know what we're saying. My life, this is by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. My life is ever given to sin. In it there is not a particle of good. I have caused others great anxiety and have troubled all souls. For the sake of my own enjoyment, I have never hesitated to perform sinful acts. Devoid of all compassion, I am concerned only with my selfish interest. Perpetually speaking lies, I become dejected upon seeing others happy, whereas the misery of others is a source of great delight for me. It's a pretty heavy song, anyway. There are limitless material desires within the core of my heart. I'm wrathful, fond of exhibiting arrogance, intoxicated by vanity, and bewildered by worldly affairs. I wear the cherished ornaments of envy and egotism. Ruined by laziness and sleep, I resist all pious deeds, yet am very enthusiastic to perform wicked acts. For the sake of worldly fame and reputation, I engage in the practice of deceitfulness. I'm victimized by my own greed, being always lustful. A vile, wicked man such as this, rejected by godly people, is a constant offender, devoid of all good works, forever inclined towards evil. He is worn out and wasted by various miseries. Now, in old age, deprived of all means of relief, thus humbled and poor, Bhaktivinoda submits his tale of grief at the feet of the Supreme Lord.
He's stating his eligibility for spiritual life. It's a radical way.
Hamara jivana sada pape rata nahi ko punye rale. Pare re udvega diachi je koto diachi jive re klesh. Diachi je koto diachi jive re klesh. Nija sukha lagi pape nahi dori doyahi na swal taparo. Parasukhe dukhi sada mithya bhashi paradukha sukha karo. Ashesha kamana hridi majhe mora krodidambha parayana. Madamatta sada vishaye mohita himsagarva vibhushana. Nidalasya hatta sukarye virata akarye udyogiyami. Pratishta lagiya shakya acharan lobahata sadakami. Eheno durjana sajana barjita aparadhi nirantara. Shubhakarya shunya sadanatha mana nana dukhe jara jara. Badhake ekona upaya vihina tate dina akinchana. Bhakati vinoda prabhura charane kore dukkha nivedana.
So, two things from our discussion this morning: developing tolerance, developing humility will help us safely and swiftly progress in spiritual life. So, any final reflections?
The goal is to become Krishna conscious, and that is important. And whatever path takes us there, we should adopt that path. I think in this world, it's often stated that the goal is not important, the journey is the most important, like how you get to a place. That's what matters the most. But it seems like in spiritual life, the most important thing is the goal. And if the path distracts us from the goal, then that's not recommended. Would you like to comment on that a little bit?
You're giving the class, so I'll let you comment. So your question, you're asking for a comment as far as, is it all right to take whatever path as long as it doesn't distract us? As long as
you say the journey is the most important, like have fun along the way, but it seems like our idea in spiritual life is the opposite of that. how do I understand?
What do you have to say? What are your thoughts on your question?
What is that? It seems contradictory to my understanding of how material world is, and can the path to the goal that we have, can it be also filled with fun, or does it have to be like?
Well, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport of Parma Karuna, the song, and in that purport Prabhupada says that do not think that this chanting and dancing will not take you to the desired goal. So by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, our goal is certainly the highest, but then our path is actually the most fun. I mean, wouldn't you say that? Would you agree that with that, Advaita Prabhu?
Yeah.
There you are. It's Susukam. It's not just Sukham, it's Susukam. It's Susukam. It's so joyful. I mean, can you imagine a path of spiritual life that is not chanting and it's not dancing? Prabhupada doesn't mention that in the purport there, but it's also feasting. So chanting, dancing, and feasting. What happens in the clubs, in nightclubs? Has any one of you been in a nightclub? I haven't, but I think I know what happens there. It's singing, dancing, and eating. Yeah? Wasting? so we're going to not waste our lives, but we're going to sing, dance, and feast back to Godhead. So our journey is pretty good. What do you say, Nitai?
Fun to the goal, like of Krishna consciousness, then it's not the right path.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, our path is very joyful.
Well, you have to be careful. You have to be mindful that there may be difficulties along the path. And tolerance, just tolerate. You've been given such a wonderful thing. If there's some little difficulty at some time, just tolerate. Patient.
But the process is joyful. It's like Avanti Brahman is saying here, his song in the one verse we say that, nothing really is causing me trouble. It's just my mind. It's just the mind is causing me happiness and success. So the process is very good, and it's very joyful, but our mind may give us trouble. And so in the association of other Vaishnavas who are trying to reach the same goal will help us with our mental problems and to reach the goal. Yes, Advaita Prabhu.
So thinking along those lines that, in life, looking back at myself, there's so many changes in life that I've experienced. And then certainly there will be many more, hopefully, in front of me. But one thing that's been kind of connecting all those experiences and changes is my desire. That's been constantly on trial. My desire to adjust to situation and to continue on the path. Krishna is always eager to see what we are made of. And once I heard, it's not that Maya is strong, it is our desire that it's very weak. So building that desire or using every circumstance to generate more of that desire to please Guru and Gauranga is kind of a common theme throughout all these experiences and changes, because the only permanent thing in this world is a change. We can't really drop an anchor and just lock ourselves and freeze that frame, that freeze that frame and existential frame. everything is just crushed by the wheel of time, and we're forced to move on, but our desire remains.
Thank you. So we can maintain this desire in the association of devotees, chant and dance and feast, and then whatever happens through those difficulties in the association of devotees, we can remember our desire and not see those as obstacles, whatever obstacles that come, but we actually see that it's a way for us to progress in our spiritual life. Yeah. Any last words, or we can say Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Krishna